As Tom mentioned, relatively new relationship between Cypress and Maestro Health. A little bit about Maestro Health. We are a healthcare technology and services company. So similar to the message that you heard from Health Advocate and a bunch of the other partners on the stage, we like to think of ourselves as an ecosystem. So we bring technology and service and fill in the nooks and crannies of whatever you need. So whether you need online enrollment solutions or you need private exchange solutions, it really doesn't matter what. We can fill in the missing pieces, and we purposely built our solution to be modular to deploy that way. Maestro is a new brand. It's been around for about a year and a half, but it's made up of old companies. So our private exchange technology platform started in 1997. Anybody from New York? Raise your hand. Anybody? No. Shocking. Oh, there you, well, Tom. Tom, you don't count. Well, if you were from New York, you would know probably New York Health Pass. They were, well, they still are. They didn't die. It's a community-rated market, and New York Health Pass was a healthy worker program, subsidized coverage for small groups in and around the New York metro area. And that sounds shockingly like the Affordable Care Act SHOP exchange. And that was one of the platforms that they used to model the SHOP exchange off. So that's how we got our start. We built and operated that platform for 14 years. So enough about us. The deck that I put together today is really about selecting an exchange or enrollment platform. It is meant to be pretty standalone, so I'm not going to sit there and read it to you. It's not very exciting to read things. But essentially what I wanted to cover today was the concept of going back to old school business decisioning processes when it comes to picking this type of technology. Everybody gets lost, I think, sometimes in the hype, particularly brokers. I remember the conversation 2 years ago. Brokers lining up on my door. Dude, you do exchanges. I need an exchange. Okay, why? I don't know, but I need one. I need to stay competitive. Well, how's that going to make you competitive? Well, because I'm going to have an exchange. Well, what does that mean? Well, I don't know. The conversation really hasn't changed much. Not picking on the brokers in the room, although some of you, I think after last night, probably deserve a little picking on. But it's really a lot of things to a lot of different people. So the one thing that I will drill in pretty deep on today is how we look at the differences between enrollment solutions, exchange solutions. What does that mean? What does it mean to an employer? What does it mean to a broker? What does it mean to a TPA, et cetera? But in a nutshell, we're going to cover the 5 key things. So the first thing we're going to touch on is defining your needs. And this is really classic stuff. So who are you as an employer, right? Are you a startup or are you Fortune 500? We really need you to understand what your goals are, and that's consistent with the theme from today. Everybody's talking about, okay, well, let's get out of this 12-month cycle of thinking about the world in a fully insured way, and let's think about it in a multi-year, 5, 10-year strategy, right? So getting out of your own way, getting back into thinking about benefits, and not just health, but your entire benefits program as a strategic operation and not a necessary evil, you can actually start to realize dividends from that, right? Not just hard dividends in terms of measurable dollars, but softer dividends in terms of presenteeism, in terms of increased productivity, increased retention, which we all know drives down costs in the long run. So first question we always ask everybody is, tell us who you are. What are your needs, right? What are your goals? Goals-based discussion. So again, this isn't really rocket science. I'm going to skip forward real quick. So once we get through all of that, right, traditional sort of goal seeking, thank you, turn that down. That used to be as bright as the surface of the sun. I think the light's dimmed a little bit, or my glaucoma's coming back. We get into the discussions of exchange versus enrollment. And all of these slides, all of the fonts are not aligned properly. That is not because we don't know how to use PowerPoint. It is because our director of marketing, her name is Lauren Messick, if you would like to send her an email. She loves custom fonts. So they don't really translate well, so I apologize for that. But at the end, you'll see a link where you can download the awesome version that has all the cool fonts in it. So Lisa, our marketing person in the back, will tell Lauren that I threw her under the bus in a live forum, and then I'm sure I'll get talked to. But enrollment versus exchange. So think about the world. Everybody wants to use technology to better their lives, to make things more efficient. But some people will come out and say, oh, I'm a Ben admin platform. Oh, I'm an online enrollment platform. Oh, I'm a private exchange platform. Does anybody, show of hands, feel that they have a firm grasp and could stand up here and evangelize what the difference between those three things are? Anybody feel pretty comfortable with that? Nobody's going to challenge. Okay, great. This just should be easy then. Whatever I say is true. So an enrollment platform in our world is simply, you're an employer, you have a benefits book, right? An entire suite of things, and you bring it to me and you say, Ernie, I want you to enroll my employees in these benefits. Okay, great. That's a benefits platform. I'm taking what you're doing, I'm configuring my platform to represent that catalog of products and services, capturing enrollment and communicating it out to one or multiple providers in a fast, cost-effective, and efficient way. An exchange is very, very similar. The only subtle difference that we like to carve out is an exchange is one where we have a pre-configured set of benefits, products, and services. It's this wide, but it's still pre-configured, right? So it's not super narrow. A lot of people think, oh, an exchange, I'm going to have to pick this stupid narrow network with these horrible providers and one plan design. No, it doesn't have to be that way. There are many out there like that, but it doesn't have to be that way. But the fundamental difference is you're coming to the exchange ecosystem and saying, I want to solve these goals, right? What can you do for me? And I'm going to pick pre-configured products and services, even in the self-funded world, pre-configured plan designs, right? You can have a lot of them, but instead of having ultimate flexibility, you could carve it down and have some pre-configured options. And the really only difference there is one of positioning and time to market. So if I'm going to configure a benefits guide, that could take anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks, depending upon the complexity. We just did a 8,000 life group. Took about 5 weeks to get their benefits. They had some whacked out benefits, right? Multiple divisions, different benefits, different waiting periods by class of employee. It's just crazy. So just getting it all in and then testing to make sure all the logic worked was really the bulk of that. I could have taken that same 8,000 life group and set them up in the pre-configured plan designs in 6 minutes. 6 weeks, 6 minutes. Neither one's right, neither one's wrong, right? It's just a function of time to market. And so when you think about that and you translate that down market, right, the brokers in the room, how many people here are writing self-funded cases under 100 routinely? Okay? How many people have seen that activity grow substantially in the last 12 to 24 months? Right. So the reason the exchange, albeit limited, broad, is so attractive is, yes, an 8,000 life group, they're accustomed to moving slow and being methodical. But your 74 life case isn't accustomed to that. They're going to wake up December 13th and go, shit, I need some benefits. Tom told me I could swear. So, dude, I need benefits. And you're the broker. You're like, yeah, man, I talked to you about that like October. So seriously, you're killing me, Smalls. What are we going to do? I'm going to jam it all in. ID cards are going to show up late. It's just going to be a mess. Or, guess what? I got this option over here. Click, click, click. Your ID cards are already on the way. So think about the world in those terms, right? Enrollment, still a valid option. Works great. Exchange, pre-configured stuff, also works great. And the difference when we look at that is we take all of the things that the health advocates of the world, the Cypresses of the world, who else is here? Health advocates sticks in my mind because, well, they were just before me. But all of those services, I also have chronic short-term memory loss. All of those services glue together in an ecosystem because it's about engagement, right, for us. So that's how we differentiate ourselves. So I put this slide in, and everybody at work was like, Ernie, what does this have to do with anything? And I admit, I probably had a couple beers when I wrote this question, but essentially, it goes to employee experience and meeting your employees where they are, right? So we've talked a lot about engagement over the last day and a half. And so the question I came up with one night was, you know, if your company came to you and said, I'm going to give you a car for $150 a month, but that's all you could know about the car, how many people would take that offer? I mean, it's a pretty cheap car, But it could be a horrible car. I mean, it could be a Yugo. It could be a Suzuki Samurai. Anybody have a Samurai, by the way, still? Anybody? Actually kind of a cool car. But you don't know enough about it. So you've got to meet your employees where they are. You got to know a little bit about them. So we're looking at healthcare and healthcare engagement as really not trying to get people to engage with strategies and channels of communication that we want them to engage with. We're looking at going to the mountain, right? So we're looking at taking all of this information and putting it into channels that they're already engaging in. So similar to the health advocate, I've already called, I'm going to help you, right? How many people are in this country? Anybody know? Last census? Shout out a number. Yep, 320, 340, 360. Depends on which census report you read. But in general, it's in the mid 300 million. How many registered active smartphones are there in this country? Anybody have a guess? About 320, 340, 360 million registered active smartphones. There are slightly more smartphones than there are breathing people in this country. In fact, 8% of the country has only a smartphone. They have no home internet. They have no work internet. All they have is a smartphone. That is their access to the outside world. In the demographic 18 to 24, what is the #1 budget line item, self-reported budget line item for this demographic, 18 to 24? Anybody? Mobile data plan. That is ahead of rent, ahead of food, it's certainly ahead of health care. So because a significant portion of the population looks at their phone this way, they actually actively seek out ways to engage with this device, which they've poured sometimes as much as 15 to 20% of their household income into, right? So they're already there. They're already looking at that 6.5-inch screen or 4.5-inch screen if you haven't upgraded your iPhone yet. So why not engage with them there? So imagine, if you will, a scenario where, again, the health advocate guy brings up diabetes. I love that case, right? We're all in the self-funded space. We know, we have the claims data, et cetera. So I can light up the phone and I can say, hey, Tom, I see you haven't bought your diabetic supplies in the last 30 days. Would you like me to set that up for automatic reorder? Reply yes, if you do. Yes, now supplies automatically show up, right? So it's a value add. It doesn't cost anything. Again, it's cost neutral because the supply company wants that all day long and twice on Sunday, right? And what we're doing is we're removing friction from the equation. So if you're familiar with psychology of behavior change, it's all about engaged or disengaged consumers. Fortunately, how many people here would like to die? Raise your hand if you'd like to die. Okay, so by definition, the entire room is at least 100% passively engaged in their health care because nobody actively wants to terminate their life at this point in time. I did actually have someone raise their hand once. Awkward. So thankfully, nobody raised their hand. Good. So passive engagement is way better than disengaged, because that's the biggest hurdle in behavior change. Then you have actively engaged and passively engaged. So at that point, there's 5 or 6 places in the behavior change cycle where you can get somebody to fall out, right? It's too complicated, I don't have the time right now, it's not the right time, that's not what I was thinking about, I started thinking about something else, oh look, I don't remember who it was, but somebody comes up to me and he goes, hey, I know I liked you for some reason, and he puts his giant manly foot next to my tiny little Protestant foot. And he says, look, we have the same shoes. I'm like, yes, yours are twice as big as mine, so thanks for making me feel awkward. But he had already thought about something else before he had finished his thought, and off we went, right? So we're constantly changing our focus. And so by engaging with people, and I'm getting back to the point, I know people are looking at me like, where the hell are you going with this? By engaging with people in the channel that they're already engaged with, we significantly improve the likelihood of instilling behavior change. So putting all of these things out there is great, but if I'm not ready to consume them as a consumer, it's a fruitless exercise. So the other thing when you're thinking through your business plan, your strategy for benefits, when you're thinking about all the things that I just talked about, and you've come up with this great plan, you said, okay, great, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do this. Now it's about selecting somebody to help you do that with. So whether you're a broker, whether you're an employer, whether you're a TPA, it's about picking the right technology platform, the right service provider. And one of the things that I would encourage you to do is take a look at the market. Gosh, how do I say this without being politically incorrect? Ask questions, right? Because I could stand up here and I've got really cool slides where the fonts don't line up, but whatever. But I could sound good, I could look good, I could have a really good shtick, but I might not actually have anything. So the first thing I would tell you is ask people to describe for you their practical experience in your market, your industry, your segment, et cetera. And you'll start to get a lot of blank stares. So that's the first thing. Over the last 15 years, we've developed a pretty cool little matrix. It looks like this. This is part of our discovery document. But that's the Ernie version of what marketing put together. We've defined 7 verticals of activity that it takes to successfully operate an online exchange 365 days a year. Right? And inside of each one of those, there's 4 or 5 things. So it's 30 to 40 different activities that need to happen. 30 to 40 different distinct activities that need to happen across 7 different roles in order for this to work. So it's a lot of moving parts. And I could sit up here for 5 hours and go for miles deep in every one of those. So the first question you need to ask yourself when you're picking a partner is, can that partner speak to that level of complexity across all of these different things? Do they even know about them? Do they even care about them? Or are they only focused on, say, online enrollment for open enrollment and then life event processing? Oh yeah, no, we don't really do that, right? So look and make sure that you have someone that understands not just the technology, but also the service model. And the last thing is, look for things that glue as much together as humanly possible in a single ecosystem. So this is the only time where I'm going to sell you anything about Maestro. We facilitate and/or deliver all of this, right? So whether you want fully insured products or self-funded products, voluntary products, P&C, you want wellness programs, you want to sell pet insurance, you want to sell ID theft, you want to sell prepaid legal, it doesn't really matter. It all goes on the platform. Whether you're selling on a group chassis or an individual chassis, it doesn't really matter. It's all on the same platform, right? And that's really critical because think about, what was it, 3 years ago, the hype really started. Everybody, how many people remember this? Groups are going to run away from group-based insurance and shove everybody into the individual market. Remember that? And there were going to be 400 trillion people in the individual market by the end of the month, and brokers are dead. Okay, everybody in the room that's a broker, raise your hand. You guys look pretty healthy to me. All right, so that didn't happen. It ticked up a little bit, for sure. Some people left, but some people didn't. But the key is to be flexible in your solution set. So if today you're targeting individuals, you know, a lot of us have said, oh, my sweet spot is like 75 to 300, 400, 500 self-funded. Okay, that's great, right? But on the bottom end of that, some of those guys might just eventually wake up one day and go, you know what? I'm totally done with healthcare, and I'm out. I'm just going to pay the penalty, throw them over the wall, and move on. Well, what do? Well, now you're scrambling. You've lost a pretty lucrative piece of business. If you had them all on the same platform, they have a soft landing. All those members still exist here. They could just be flipped over and sign up for individual insurance on the same exact technology platform that they used last year to sign up for group. Right? Same thing with self-funded versus fully insured. A lot of platforms out there will tell you self-funded insurance does not work in a private exchange. It's mutually exclusive. That's hogwash, right? I like your face. That's if I could make that face, I would have, but I can't. Maybe you can come up and make the face for me. But it was something like, no, of course it's appropriate, right? For the brokers in the room, when you go out and you advocate on behalf of your groups, Do you care about how much your products and services that you're selling them cost? Do you try to do a good job representing your employer groups in making sure they have the most efficient and effective benefits programs in the market? Yeah? Okay. So you know what the Affordable Care Act says? It says you suck at that. That's what it says. It says there is no price competition in health insurance today. And so in order to solve for that, we're going to set up a public exchange and make health plans fight side by side. And that will instill a sense of price competition, and that will drive down healthcare costs. Yeah, I like it. He's like, what? Yeah, we already had price competition. So what we did, right, so now let's stop bashing Obamacare. You may have discerned my political leanings just now. Let's stop bashing it. It did solve for access, right? It did solve for a lot of problems. It did not solve for cost, period. So minimum essential benefits doesn't solve for cost. Lifetime cap removal doesn't solve for cost. I mean, you're with me, right? That's going in the wrong direction. But it did solve for a lot of other problems. All the things we talked about will solve for cost in the long term. So the act isn't broken. I really like the Affordable Care Act. I comes or goes, I think is really irrelevant for us as an industry. But it did two things. It energized and accelerated a conversation that's already started 15-ish years ago, right? Crystallized us as an industry and made us all get in a room and kind of hash out some of our differences and come up with some pretty cool products and services. Not just ours, but stop-loss carriers are more creative today, I believe, than they were 10 years ago. Actuaries in general are not mind-numbingly boring as they used to be. They have new things to think about, right? New risk models that they can explore. Any actuaries in the room? Sweet. I didn't offend you either. All right. So the key takeaways, and then I'll take some questions. And just as a precursor, kind of prime the pump, I'm not shy about talking about my competition. I always put them in the best light. But if anybody has any experience with particular platforms, has any questions, wants to know, compare and contrast, you want to talk about the average airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow, it's fine. I can field all those questions. But the key takeaways, right? Just like everything else, I talked to, oh gosh, I cannot remember her name, but she's the transportation employer in the there you are, I see you. You're hiding from me. She said she started with Cypress a while ago, and I said, yeah, well, what are you doing? She's like, oh, I do health advocacy, I do this, I do that. And I'm like, yeah, you did that all at once? No, I did it over time. Same principle with technology. Bite off what you can chew, get your arms around it, and grow, right? So look for the technology and service solutions that meet your specific needs, verify current functionality against the roadmap, start slow and grow. It's not rocket science. And so with that, yeah, open it up for questions. Ernie got in 20 minutes. How do you like that?